You know, sometimes a little trip to grandmother's house can be horrifying. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I hope you're having a good day today. I know that if you've been watching or listening to the Film Threat Podcast, that you are a fan of new indie films. One of my favorite parts of doing what I do is discovering new up-and-coming indie filmmakers and seeing their work and seeing them evolve as artists. And I'm really excited today to have on the Film Threat Podcast Howl writer-director Michele Martin. She does it all too. Writer, director, actress, and I mean, it's all you, this film.
Well, you know, I have a cast and a tiny crew. Yeah.
Yes, crew. But see, that is what separates to me the bigger Hollywood stuff from the independent stuff. Is there's a heart to it. There's you know, I would say a bleeding heart, but
yes,
maybe that's too close to home. But let's start with this, okay? Howl, no bones about it. This is a horror fairy tale. It's rooted in Little Red Riding Hood, and we had those stories read to us as kids or read them. The real stories are horror films.
They're Grimm's. You know, most children's, especially when they were written to kind of titillate and scare children, not in a horrible way, but don't go out in the woods, you'll get eaten.
No, it's true. They're like lessons. I mean, look, I grew up at a time where we left our screen doors open and went out to play. This is before mobile devices. All right.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to get too specific, but before mobile devices, we went out to play. Those fairy tales probably guided, like, don't go to strangers' homes, right?
Exactly.
Or watch out for strangers' homes that are serving a glorious meal, you know, to beef
everything that goes bump in the night. Yeah,
everything goes. So those fairy tales, the Grimm's fairy tales, were definitely warnings, but you at least took this sort of structure a little bit inspired by Little Red Riding Hood and put together something a little, but it's different, and the tone is really intense. Tell me, did you go back to the reference material? Did you look at other films inspired by Little Red Riding Hood? Because I felt that there was a good amount of research that was done to put together this film.
Well, I made a film that I would like to see, and I'm not a big modern horror fan, but I love vintage horror, like The Shining and Cat People, and I like what David Lynch does. I love the avant-garde, new wave sort of films. I mean, that was Truffaut and all those guys, and they were dealing with a teeny budget. And I thought, how can I tell something that I would be interested in? And I don't think I went back with the story too much. I mean, I have it ingrained as a lot of us do, the Little Red Riding Hood story. I did particularly want to address the fact that girls are often depicted in these fairy tales as victims. And so I thought this is an interesting opportunity to tell a different point of view and use it as a very adult version. So, you know, she's a little bit older than the real Red Riding Hood. She's college age. I don't want to tell too much. She's not well. Goes to grandma's house. There's no grandma, but there is a wolf. And so, yeah, I mean, I took a little bit, but I don't think I took as much from the story as I did from the kind of horror films that I like.
Well, I think you definitely used it as like a launching pad and
yes,
like a basic structure, but then went in. I mean, it's and I love the way that you deal. Correct me if I'm wrong. I felt it was a little Italian horror. I mean this in a good way. I love Italian horror. It's a
Right.
different kind of taste, and I could see those inspirations. Am I correct in this?
You
assumption?
are. Yes, you are. And the Hammer films of the 1950s to 70s, the things they were making, like Hounds of the Baskerville, and yeah, the Bela Lugosi, I wanted to create that energy that you're sitting in it, but there's this feeling of pall, like you don't know what's going to happen. And it's almost tedious in a way because, and to me, much scarier than just somebody coming out from under the bed and, stabbing someone to death. It's that feeling that we all have, I think, or have had, maybe, I have certainly, where you are scared. You wake up from a dream and it's real, and you're frightened of what's under the bed or what lurks in the woods, like we were talking about. It addresses fear and overcoming. It's an allegory for overcoming those haunting fears, and the coming of age kind of thing adds to it because, it's a really scary time. You're just testing everything out, and she's definitely testing everything out.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Hammer because I kind of felt that. I mean, there are parts of it that are a slow burn. There aren't cheap scares, right? Those like, a cat,
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, those cheap scares that are usually built on some sound. The sound levels are boosted. This happens when you see something like The Conjuring, whatever the Conjuring movie was, and
I couldn't afford a cat.
Yeah. Oh my God! But see, I like a film that's super low budget in the sense that like you feel like you have an opportunity to play a little bit in the world because there's not that pressure of like 50 people standing around each with a job. It's like when you've got like a small production, there's the opportunity to really play and get creative. Did you have that opportunity during the filming?
Yes, I did. It was wonderful because the actors that I work with, Scott Hamm and Kenny Johnson, and I have worked in several projects together, as well as Scott and I. So you kind of have a feel for what they do and what they can do. And we did definitely, even though I like short days, I don't like to exhaust people, on an indie set because that sometimes happens. And then you don't get what you need, what I wanted to get from the film. So yeah, we definitely played with it, and I've worked with them before, so I know they're willing to go there. And there was the fear of writing that line between camp and what I had wanted, and I feel so lucky to have gotten what I wanted. And it just helped knowing the actors and what they could do. So we played with that a lot. We played with doing one take very, very, tense and quiet, and then one that was really, because I play with sound in this a lot, with her dreams, I don't know if you noticed, become progressively harsher and louder and more vibrant. And when Scott shows up, you're following this girl and it's all very eerie and quiet, and then Scott shows up, Ulf, and all of a sudden it's alarming. And I did want that. So it was wonderful. We were up in a cabin, part of it in Big Bear and part in Mammoth, and we were able to do that because we had the place. And then at the end of the day, we talk about it in the evening, and it was a short shoot, but it went beautifully. So,
well, Mammoth is a beautiful area, but
I hope that answers your question.
No, it does.
I didn't get off.
It's not camp at all, but I love that you and Clint Eastwood have the same philosophy.
Oh, thank you.
Because his whole thing is, we're done by dinner time. Like,
exactly.
Done, go to dinner. And, look, I've worked on films where it's 18-hour days.
Yes.
Of course, you're going past that because there has to be a certain number of hours of turnaround for union rules. So people get like a good night's sleep, which nobody does. And people are irritable and cranky. And I don't think that's the best environment to make a film. I really don't. So
I agree.
I'm glad you and Clint Eastwood see eye to eye on something.
Oh, well, me too. I feel honored. Yeah, he gets very natural performances from his actors as well. And that's what I was going for in order to make it seem very, because, there's a lot of unrealistic stuff going on. So I wanted the actors in the world to feel real. And I think if you attach to those actors, and yes, I agree, certainly everybody got to bed at an early hour. In fact, they were like, that's it? Because I was filming like 6 hours a day, and I've been on so many sets as an actor, like you said, where it's, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say, but 16, 18 hours. By the end, you're not even coherent. And so I thought less is more. Even if I get fewer takes, they're really awake, they're really in it, they're able to be in the world. And my DP, Charles Huddleston, and we really worked out the feeling that I wanted way beforehand. So I was able to stay in character, which was really important for me as an actor. I'm very method, and in fact, we have outtakes. It's hilarious because I'm talking as her. I'm like, okay, we need to cut that.
Okay, I have to ask just
because she's a strange, weird girl.
Well, writer, director, actor, especially lead actor, is not as common. And I wanted to ask, especially for a low budget production, what kind of challenges did that present, and how did you, aside from staying in character, which please continue to elaborate, how do you get that balance of, the three most important roles and you're doing all of them? In addition to, I'm sure, producing as well is a part of that. So how do you balance it, and what advice would you pass on to people that would attempt that feat?
Yeah, well, it's difficult, more difficult than I thought, because as an actor, I was not able to just stay there the entire time. But it was easy in the fact that I knew what I wanted. I'm the actor, so I know what I can do and what I wanted out of the character, and that was helpful. So I don't know, I guess the advice is that, I don't know, it depends on the person. Part of me was like, wow, I wish I could have just directed this, but then I love the role so much and I wanted to play it, and I'm an actor first and foremost, so I'm cheap and I knew what I could do. And I think that I accomplished that. But yeah, there were moments on the set when things were pretty tense, like some of the fight scenes between the wolves and that kind of thing, where I would have wished that I could just stand back and direct. So it presents challenges, and it also presents opportunity to work with someone what they're going to do. Whereas if I had someone else, I may not have been able to shoot as fast with another actor in my role. And also, I kind of look like a Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, you pulled it off well. I mean, I didn't realize all I knew, I didn't watch a trailer, which I'm really happy that I've just seen too many trailers lately that have ruined films. So I specifically chose to not watch the trailer.
Good.
Yeah. And I would like this. It's like, oh, I can see where some of this is going, at least.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. But what is it about fairy tales that in our lizard brain, right, that hundreds of years these things have survived? Because there's a lot of stories that have not survived, right? But these have survived hundreds of years.
Yes.
What is it in our lizard brain that these stories keep coming up and keep being retold and reimagined in a different format? Why do we return to this material? Why does it resonate with us in some kind of a primal sense?
Well, I think that, like everything in childhood, I believe that you spend your entire life reliving and getting over your childhood. And so I think that it is more ingrained as a child because we're really listening. We don't have any other chatter going on in our brain. We're absorbing it. So kids absorb things in a very different way. And so I think that, we absorb. So in our lizard brain or our child mind, we've absorbed these fairy tales and these stories more than we would if we sat down and studied, in our freshman year, if we're studying, I don't know, what did we study? Tolstoy or something. I think that they're just ingrained. And they're told in such a way that there's such a pattern, with the child's stories, that we recognize the structure. And I played with the structure a little bit. And some people might not like that, but I really was purposefully doing that. So, but yeah, it's in our lizard brains.
It's the lizard brain. The stuff that
our lizard brains.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Like, I feel like childhood is trauma to varying degrees, and your adult life is working out that childhood trauma and trying to go against that so it doesn't affect your adult decision making. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely makes perfect sense. I say it all the time, actually. So we're just trying to work it out, and by the end we're like, oh, I've got it worked out. Well,
so mostly, I hope so. At a certain point, just being a slave to that trauma can really affect, and alter your life in ways that are not positive. So this is why I think horror is a genre that is popular across, because that is all about dealing with trauma, right? That's every horror film is in some way, it's lizard brain based. That's why it's so popular. And I think that it's like, even like the zombie movie genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you're being chased. I mean, that's like, okay,
right.
Kids, it's like you have dreams about and nightmares about being chased, and zombie movies, you're being chased by something that's gonna get you. That's right. That could be every horror film, actually, not just zombie movies. So
I think it's very powerful also, the mind, that in this one it's like we don't know what's going to get her. There's not an actual zombie. We're our own worst enemy. We're our own best friend or our worst enemy. So what goes in our mind is extremely powerful. And I think that the not knowing, and I think that's what you're talking about with the Italian films, right? That they let you make it up. And oftentimes when you're watching a film, they tell you what's scary. And instead of doing that, I let the audience bring their own experiences, their own childhood traumas. I've had different people see it, just testing it out, and they all come back with something very different. And it was shocking to me when people came back with what it was about. So because it is so avant-garde and it is so different, I was not worried about that, but I was wondering about that. And it was very rewarding that people came back with the intention of the film and really understood that, like you said, as the child mind, as what happened to them, the parents, all of that, and I did, I'm a fan of that kind of thing, of the way we see things as children is very different. In Great Expectations, there's a quote that says, I'm not going to tell the story as it happened. I'm going to tell it the way I saw it. So the way we absorb and see things, that's the story, Well,
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to speak to you, Michele.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. And the film is now out and available on video, on demand, all platforms.
Yes.
At Howl.
Howl, yes. It's available now, and I'd love to hear from you. I'm on Instagram, and let me know what you think. Good or bad, but I just want to know while people see it, because I believe that art is yours. You make it and then you give it away, and then it's a gift, and it's no longer yours anymore. So,
and by give it away, we mean buy it or rent it. So
yes.
Michele, thanks for talking to us on the Film Show podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. I had fun. Thank you.